When people hear me talk about the Unified Service Management Method's 5 processes and 8 standard workflows, they almost always think I'm talking about a new process framework. But in many ways, the USM method isn't new at all, and I repeatedly remind folks it's not a framework but a method. And it's ironic that the USM method, while fundamentally a rethinking of past and proven best practices, is capable of driving transformative change in service management. Rather than inventing new practices, USM succeeds by stripping away unnecessary complexity and returning to core management principles that have always been effective but were often lost in practice-heavy implementations. And this paradox underscores an important lesson. Transformational change does not always come from radical innovation. It can emerge from a disciplined reapplication of time-tested principles in a modern context. So I'd like to take some time to discuss transformational change as it relates to the systems thinking iceberg model and how to apply the iceberg model in a USM context. The systems thinking iceberg model is used to understand organizational behavior and change. It explains why focusing only on visible events leads to superficial improvements, while deeper transformation requires addressing the hidden structures and mental models that drive those events. The bottom line is that while books like The Fifth Discipline and Systems Thinking aren't new, they may be more relevant today than ever. So if you haven't read The Fifth Discipline, it's worth a look. The model consists of 4 levels. Above the iceberg are events. These are visible things that we can see and are symptoms. Events tell us what's happening right now. Below the iceberg are patterns and trends, and these are not always apparent. Patterns and trends emerge over time. And these patterns and trends are influenced by the underlying structures that contribute to the pattern or trend. These could be policies, regulations, organizational structures, and the various routines or standard operating procedures that we use. In the last stage of the model, it's where we examine the mental models, the beliefs, behaviors, decisions, and actions of individuals and organizations within the system. And real transformation takes place at this level. It's important to understand that the relationship between the iceberg model and USM is bidirectional. If we apply the iceberg model to USM, we use the model to analyze how USM-driven change happens, showing that USM impacts both visible structures, processes and workflows, and hidden layers, culture, behavior, and mindset. If we apply USM to the iceberg model, we demonstrate how USM can help organizations address the hidden layers of the model, ensuring that change is sustainable and not just superficial. What I'd like to focus on is how the USM method can use the iceberg model as a lens to explain how the method leads to transformative change for an enterprise. Now, it's important to recognize that USM specifies a management architecture, not a technology architecture, for enterprise services. The architecture's building blocks are based on principles, not on a practice framework. And you can find out more about the USM principles and each of the USM building blocks associated with the customer provider interaction model on the USM wiki. Okay, for starters, let's recognize that from a service perspective, or I should say a service management perspective, we need to reach an agreement with the customer about the service. And a logically repeatable specification for all services is an important USM building block. The service agreement is what provides the context for all events and for the routines associated with those events. USM simplifies all events from customers and users as wishes, changes, incidents, and service requests. And these are reactive calls from customers and users and describe what's happening right now. Now, of course, the provider will react to these events, but will also do analysis to identify patterns and trends. And this could include incident analysis, customer experience analysis, or any pattern or trend relevant to the customer and provider. And note that this includes both threats or negative risks and opportunities or positive risk. The structure level is where USM's non-redundant process model and standardized workflows play a huge role. This universal and standardized structure is what creates a unified and universal structure for complex service supply chains inside and outside the enterprise, while still allowing flexibility to tailor routines with any practice guidance, organizational topology, or automation tooling. The way the USM method enables an enterprise to structure and standardize their routines without sacrificing localization flexibility is a key to the method and to its ability to drive transformative change. Now, of course, real transformation happens when people change. And this is what mental models is all about. Remember, the USM building blocks are based on the principles of the USM method. The USM Wiki will give you the rationale and implications for each principle, but understand that by creating the USM building blocks, the USM method enables an enterprise to structure and standardize their routines without sacrificing localization flexibility. And it's a key to the method and to its ability to drive transformational change. These routines are enabled by the USM building blocks and driven by principles. This is what can drive behavioral change in mindsets, and that's really what transformation's all about. So USM's structured and standardized approach makes transformational change more manageable because it eliminates variability and enforces best practices. And while Agile's principles are excellent for improving existing systems, they're much less effective for radical transformation due to their reliance on gradual adaptation. Continued efforts to leverage Agile and other practice frameworks will not drive transformative change in service management. That's because practices are by nature emergent and change with local conditions. And while it's important in a rapidly changing world, the fact remains that practices are by nature emergent. USM offers a unified, time-tested method that reintroduces fundamental service management principles in a simplified and universally applicable way. In essence, USM is really old lessons for new dogs. It doesn't introduce entirely new concepts, but rather reapplies proven management principles in a streamlined and structured format that fits modern service demands. So start with the right end of the stick and leverage the USM method along with any practice guidance you feel is appropriate to establish a foundation for lasting change by creating stable, scalable structures for enterprise services. Eliminating inefficient patterns by using standard workflows, establish an AI-ready foundation for service management, and maybe most important, transform mental models while strengthening organizational alignment and collaboration. Make sure your iceberg's not melting. Apply the USM method today. Contact me for more.